I'm Mangino. Welcome to the Mangino Talks podcast. We talk about everything that matters to Pittsburgh, from current events to Pittsburgh history, social issues to sports, politics, to practical day-to-day life. And when it comes to social issues and day-to-day life, it doesn't get more real than the issue of homelessness in Pittsburgh. It is growing. The numbers continue to get greater and greater. And the big question is, why is it happening this way? We have more people with the opportunities to work more than ever before at greater wages. Why are we having this growing homelessness crisis in the city? And the way that they're choosing to approach homelessness seems to be completely disconnected from what we have done in the past. And we're almost creating a group of individuals who feel entitled, if you will, to be homeless and then to be cared for by government authorities and major nonprofits. And the idea of wanting to lift people out of their homelessness and bring them back into functioning society is not at forefront of the minds of many that are leading the cause regarding homelessness. However, there is an individual that has been at the forefront of an organization that has made a difference in people's lives and has been doing this now for decades. I'm talking about Light of Life Rescue Mission and their executive director, Jerrel Gilliam. Executive Director Gilliam, welcome to Mangino Talks.
It's always good to be with you. I enjoy our conversations and look forward to another great time together.
The homelessness issue in Pittsburgh, where do you see it at this point? We were talking briefly before we started recording that you are extremely busy right now. What are the issues that are most pressing that you're dealing with on a regular basis?
Well, we're all seeing this increase in the number of homeless and those experiencing homelessness on our streets. And what we were talking about before we started recording was just that, at our emergency services building, we have seen that increase there. We have been at or over capacity when traditionally this time of year is when we would start seeing our beds empty, and until the end of the fall, winter, we would go back into an overflow. And so, but because there are so many out there, we're continuing to have our overflow. In fact, we had a meeting last week to make additional overflow beds available by setting up cots in our dining area. And again, we usually don't have to do that until severe weather. And so there are several factors, I think, that are contributing. And one of my concerns is that some of the solutions that we are trying to enact here in our city and in our county unintendedly can make it even worse. And we've seen this in other cities where they try to address homelessness. But if we don't do it in the right way, rather than solving the problem, we actually can make it worse.
Let's talk about that. What are we doing, in your estimation, that may be making it worse right now?
Well, one of the things is about the approach itself. When they were considering shutting down some of the camps and some of the areas, what we say is that it's important to get out there, get into the camps, talking to the people and understand what was their path to homelessness, and then help them to now come out of homelessness back into society. Depending on how and why they are there, the approach needs to be different. And what ends up happening is when we create one solution, like a shelter downtown, and we say, okay, everybody who's homeless will go into this one geographic location, we treat them all as one, and you end up not being able to help hardly any of them. If you have, for example, a woman with a child that was evicted, does not have a mental health or addiction background, they need a different kind of program and assistance than someone who's active in their addiction, not interested in coming off of their addiction, but want to continue to use. And they are different from someone who is addicted but wants to get clean and doesn't want to be around people who aren't clean, et cetera. And you can like keep going down the line. But what ends up happening is you group everyone, or in our system downtown, you group everyone together, and then the people will not want to go to those spaces because they don't feel safe, or they don't want to be around people who are doing negative things. So for me, what I'm suggesting is that we do a better job at coming up with tracks based on what the needs are. And then once we get those identified, we have solutions in each one of those tracks. And for us and in our city, there's a small percentage of people who are out there that that have severe mental health, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are the people that are yelling at themselves. Those are the people that are threatening themselves and others. But because we don't peel them out and get special programming just for them, which might involve them being in some type of a hospitalized type setting for a while to get them stabilized, which I realize can be controversial, but if they're suffering out in the street, I don't see how as a society we are somehow loving them well by leaving them roam our streets. But those people then disrupt the whole system. So you have shelters who are not equipped to deal with people like that. But then the majority of the people who are homeless, they don't want to be around those people.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up being out in the streets and at risk. So we need to be able to get those people who are high mental health needs, get them into a separate track and get help for them, and then begin to work our way up. If you go to a hospital, we've learned from their best practices, you know that floors are divided based on the need. If it's a burn unit, all the people with burns, they go there.
Mm-hmm.
Psych unit, cardiac unit, those things happen because there's synergy around being around other people who are dealing with the same thing. And so there are faith-based organizations out there. We lost over 400 beds in our county over the last 4 years from transitional housing because there was a move based on federal dollars to eliminate transitional housing beds and to have all the beds go to this harm reduction type model.
Oh, wow.
And housing first. So all of these nonprofits that were providing the transitional housing, they went out of business. We need to bring them back, and we need to be able to say, hey, we will come alongside you and help you to be able to help these people that need so much help.
When it comes to the encampments, was it wrong to go in there and then just clear them out? And then you just pick up everything? Or should it have been on a case-by-case basis and go in there and engage with each individual to find out where they are, why they are where they are, and what would be the best way of helping them? Does that tie in with what you mentioned just a moment ago?
Yes, it does. And we've been successful in doing that. Our new building is going to be opening, or a renovated building will be opening in about a month. There was a place there by the tracks where there were a camp that would pop up, and we've helped to, I'm doing air quotes, close that camp a couple of times. But that's how we did it. We went in, we worked with them, and we helped each of them find beds and find a place to go. When they were considering doing this with some of these other camps, what I was encouraging those in the county and the city is to take longer time. It takes longer, but it's more successful, and you don't end up with what happened where you just give them a deadline in 2 weeks, and then next thing they got to go, and they don't have a place to go, and they just get spread out. The other thing I wanted to mention that is a concern is that one of the groups, I talked about the mental health, mm-hmm. There's also this group of people, I call them urban campers. There are people that they just want to live on the streets. They're doing it by choice. They're not there due to some crisis. This is just a lifestyle that they want to live. And they want to do that. What ends up happening when we open up places like the Smithfield shelter
Mm-hmm.
or other things, people like that will look at it as an opportunity. And in other cities, what happens is if we just continue to provide this kind of open-ended, anyone come, they were doing this in New York City for a while, what ends up happening is you attract people who are coming and they're going to feed me, they're going to let us stay here, we can camp wherever we want, and you end up attracting people, and that's how you get things like the Skid Row or what's happening in Portland,
Mm-hmm.
places where you can't even walk on the sidewalks because they enacted ordinances that give people the right to camp wherever they are. So we just have to be very careful with how we do this. I've heard there's ideas about having tiny homes and all of these things. There's a good way to do that and a bad way to do it. If you have some guidelines and you're helping people to get out of homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very effective. If you have low barrier and low expectations, you end up creating what you have in Skid Row. You have people who are attracted to it as a lifestyle and they just want to stay there, and it just grows and grows and grows.
What percentage would you suggest may be these urban campers that you're referring to?
I'm saying right now in our city, it's around that 5%, 5 to 10% of them out there. And many of our outreach team, they know them. We talk to them and, because we want to know their story. But what ends up happening is that grows from 10% to 15% to 20%. And then again, you get these situations. And then once you start getting them growing, you have the people with the negative impact, the drug dealers, the gangs, now victimizing those people. So
Wow.
then you get that element, and then that element needs to be dealt with differently. And we need to have strong and clear laws that protect our people so that when people are doing those kinds of things, the police can deal with them. We don't want to make homelessness an issue with the law, but people who are breaking the law, we need to enforce our laws that are on the books.
As we talk about homelessness and the Smithfield shelter that is going to close at the end of June, one of the things I keep on finding in stories regarding this in reference to this shelter is temporary. It comes up all the time. But then there are individuals who have been staying there that act as though and talk as though it was going to be some aspect of a permanent shelter. And is it wrong of me, Director, to suggest that these individuals who are staying at a temporary shelter, those who are not true mental health issues where they just can't function in thought and reason, that when you go into a temporary shelter, part of it is your own recognition that this is temporary, and then what kind of plans do you have moving forward when the weather gets better and temporary facilities then close down because of it's not as cold as it once was, which was the justification for opening it in the first place?
Yes. Yeah, and again, that's why we need to have the right kind of philosophy being used as soon as we open these. We were talking about that here in our city. We did not see the numbers of people on the streets in the city of Pittsburgh increase until we started doing the shelters being in existence from October to March. And people began to select it as a lifestyle choice. Before, it would only be open if it was below freezing or below zero. These emergency shelters would open. And so, but you couldn't, count on that for week to week until you got into the very deep of the winter. Well, when they made the decision, which again, it could seem like a good thing. Hey, we're just going to stay open for 4 months and people can stay there, but you end up attracting that urban camper kind of person, the drug addicts that are not wanting to change. You attract them, and then they're like, hey, I can live rent free. I don't have to worry about food, and I'll have a place to stay. And they make it as a lifestyle choice. And so, yeah, it compounds the problem rather than solves the problem. Then when it's time to close, those people are like, hey, I thought this was going to go on. Well, no, it was a temporary shelter all along.
Right.
Well, they're hoping that if they make a big deal about it, that it'll
Mm-hmm.
just be extended.
Do you think that the mayor, his administration, and those who are homeless advocates in general that are getting the most print time and camera time are recognizing that they are making the problem worse with these most recent solutions they're coming up with? And are they hearing you as you talk about a better way of addressing this?
Well, that's a complicated question there. I think that there is some efforts. I was invited to a meeting, and other shelter providers were invited to a meeting. It was the first time that the mayor convened such a meeting down at the One Smithfield, and there were providers there. The county was there, and we met for about an hour and a half. He's going to have another one coming up in a couple of weeks. So I think there definitely was an effort. I do think that there is the opportunity, and it's not just me. There are other providers who have been doing this for decades.
Right.
I think it would be valuable to bring all of us around the table for a solutions-oriented conversation. Sometimes we'll have these public forums, and you get people there who are angry and upset, and they're yelling, but it doesn't help to get solutions. We need to get some people who are saying, we're willing to put skin in the game. We have staff, we have facilities. We want to help get those people around, and we can do that. I do think we need to do more of those kinds of meetings, and we would love to be a part of that.
It sounds as though there's an aspect of a tough love approach that needs to be employed. I'm thinking about the parents that will not put a line in the sand on their children that are living at home. And listen, you've got to go get a job. You have to take care of yourself. You have to make plans to move out and move on with your life. And at some point, is it not really love for individuals if we do this with those who are homeless, that we actually give them the tools and then the expectations that you are going to do differently moving forward, and we're not going to make it easy for you to live this life that in some regards it is a choice. I mean, if you're not choosing to get the help that you need because it's too comfortable to keep on going the way that you are, or you have these urban campers that you're talking about that my understanding is that some of them come from prosperous suburbs that they can't stay in mom and dad's basement anymore. So they're decided, okay, I guess I'll go live on the streets for a while. We have to come up with a real grown-up approach at this and not just base it on the emotions and feelings at the time.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you're saying. I would put one asterisk next to it, is that the tough love works for the people that are choosing that, but we also do have to be aware of not only the mental health, but the trauma informed. But there are people who have experienced trauma that it takes them a little longer to trust and to begin to move forward again. And so with the people who are wanting to change, the people who have been traumatized, we do need to come alongside them and give them time to understand and think and believe again, to kind of give time for neuroplasticity in their brain, to kind of get new pathways of believing that there's hope. Mm-hmm. So we do need to have that, but definitely we have to have boundaries around what does hope happen. Now, I know that Second Avenue, when they first opened, one of the first questions they asked the people that came there was, what's your housing plan? So as soon as they came in, they were told, you got to have a housing plan. And so, but there has to be a backup to that, because if a person, in the end of the day, understands that they can continue to stay there even if they don't have a housing plan, or they're not making progress towards that housing plan, mm-hmm. then after a while that word gets out, and it's just they're just going to remain as they were. And so with us, we have when people come in, they have to agree to a plan.
Yes.
And in our emergency shelter, you have 15 days to come to that emergency shelter in order to now make a plan. If you're not going to be making a plan to get additional help in some way, then we're going to refer you somewhere else, because there are people that want to get help, and we want to make sure that we're coming alongside them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on all of that. I did not intend my phraseology of tough love to not be sensitive to those who are dealing with very serious issues, whether it be severe mental health, women who have been battered and abused, and there's a lack of trust.
Yes.
I completely understand that, and I want to be sympathetic to where they are. At the same time, I'm reading a story here in the Post-Gazette referencing Terrence McGeorge, who's the founder of Project Matters, and he is quoted as saying, "Community activists like myself will make sure we hold them accountable." And I'm guessing the them that he's referring to are elected officials. But isn't there an aspect to where the them being held accountable would be those that are homeless as well?
Yeah, it is true. The biggest thing that helps people to change is to realize that they have agency, that they have a choice. They might have been victimized and they might feel like they're victims, but they have a choice. They can make choices that can change the trajectory of their lives. And once they see that, hope comes alive and you see the light comes back on in their life. But again, it goes back, Mangino, to this idea of, when we look at a homeless person, what do we see? Do we see a person that is trapped in a lifestyle that they're going to just always be that, and all we're doing is just going to come alongside and try to make it as safe as possible, and it ends up sounding like hospice care, where we're just coming alongside them, and that's where some of these philosophies go. It's just, hey, we're going to give them needles, we're going to give them a place, we're going to just give them, let them stay there. But in the end, it's a very dismal place. When we see people, we see potential. We see people who have been wounded and harmed, and we say, you know what, with some healing, you can live again, you can hope again, you can love again. So we have a very hopeful look, but in order to get there, sometimes you have to have that tough love. You have to say, okay, you got to get up, you're going to have to do some work, but man, on the other side of this, you have a whole life ahead of you. And I'd much rather invest on that side than this more palliative care, hospice kind of approach, where it's just, well, let's just leave them here and we're just going to make it as comfortable as possible. And we see the problem grow and grow. And that's what you have in Portland and in LA and San Francisco and others.
It's a twisted sense of compassion in my mind.
Yeah.
It's so much better to help elevate people to a better life than to make it so that, well, at least they're as comfortable as they can be in the squalor that they're in. And it also says that you don't have very much confidence or faith, and not you particularly, but for these individuals who espouse these practices, that they don't have any confidence, any faith, any conviction within themselves that the people that they're wanting to, quote, help are capable of doing anything on their own. They are infantile in their minds, and they need to be treated like that for the rest of their lives. That doesn't make sense to me, sir.
Right. I agree with you.
Let me ask you this. One of the things that I want to do on this podcast is make a difference. I don't want people to think, as they listen to this, that we are just now observers and we're frustrated and all we have left to do is wait for government or big, massive nonprofits to do something about it. Help us with what we can do individually to make a difference in the situation that we have when it comes to homelessness in Pittsburgh.
Well, I would say first, look out there to see where are the nonprofits that are currently making a difference. And I'm not just talking about places like Light of Life. There are churches, there are nonprofit organizations that are every day out there. They're providing places for people to go, and we need to help them. All of them need money. They need support. They can expand what they're doing. Even without the government additional funding, they just need resources. So if you have a church, a synagogue, a Lions Club, a Rotary Club, each of those groups have the opportunities to make a difference. So I say, let's do that. And then let's come alongside the government programs that do work, and let's help them. Let's volunteer. Let's get some things going that way. There are also some people who are developers and construction workers who have the ability to actually renovate some spaces and make them affordable housing, because we need affordable housing. We need more affordable housing units in our city. And so we need to be thinking in terms of that. When somebody's working a minimum wage job, they can't afford $1,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment or a two-bedroom apartment. So we need to be also looking at how can we do that? How can we have affordable housing? There's a group called, I believe their name is Beacons of Hope, a nonprofit organization, and they come alongside people who are experiencing homelessness, and they will help them with an apartment. In some cases, they even will have people stay with them as they get on their feet. And again, those kinds of organizations are out there, and they just need additional support to keep doing what they're doing. They're great models, and we just need to expand them. Community, the church on the north side, Allegheny Alliance Church, they're about to open a friendship community hub. It's a beautiful idea, and I think it's going to be a national model. It'll be a place where people can come and get help and get resources and be loved and cared for. But we need safe places like that. I call them like oases of hope all around our city where people can go, not hang out, is not a place to just, go to sleep and just be there. Again, it's about self-help, but to have places to go that, hey, when I'm ready to get some help, I know I can go to these places, and there's going to be people there that are going to come alongside me and help me get back on the right road. We need employers that are willing to give some of these people a chance to work with them. We need mentors that are willing to work with people to help them to be successful on the job. And then we have great programs like at community college where people can go through a certification or credentialing program, and they're guaranteed work. And so if people want to change, the opportunities are here. And I just say we need to bring all of the tools to the table, and we can make Pittsburgh a model city for how to deal with this.
Jerrel Gilliam, once again, Executive Director of Light of Life Rescue Mission here in Pittsburgh. If you would like to get more information regarding Light of Life, it's really easy. lightoflife.org is the website. Executive Director Gilliam, thank you so much for your time today. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for listening to the Mangino Talks podcast. New episodes drop Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For more on me and the show, be sure to visit manginotalks.com. Follow me on your favorite social media platform by using @ManginoTalks, or you can just Google Mangino Talks. And once you find me, please like, follow, subscribe, and share the pages with your friends and your family. Thank you once again for listening to the Mangino Talks podcast.